What is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lucas Murphy, and the Kansas City Chiefs are no longer winless. We have gone into MetLife Stadium against the New York Giants and escaped an absolute gritty football game, winning 22-9. Now, I think there are some pretty cool statistics that come with this win. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs have never defeated the New York Giants on the road. They were 0-7, and so for us to go in and secure a win, I do believe that allows the Kansas City Chiefs to have won on the road against all NFL teams, which I think is pretty impressive. It also allows us to avoid an 0-3 start, which hasn't happened since 2011. So the fact that we're 1-2 kind of changes the trajectory, at least for now, on where we're going to be. I think really this game was, holy smokes, ladies and gentlemen, it really was a roller coaster. It was ups and downs. I mean, depending on how you view and watch these football games, I think can really kind of mess with your emotions, mess with how you feel about this team at times. I often kind of pan to social media at the same time I'm watching the game, and you can really kind of gauge where fans and people who cover the Kansas City Chiefs are at during the game, and it's just really cool to see. So, we really went in there. I think my biggest takeaway from this was the fact that we were on Sunday Night Football. It was an opportunity for the Kansas City Chiefs to really kind of start to write their season in a positive direction. They were given an opportunity to play against a very kind of down opponent in the New York Giants. There's not a lot of positive things. We'll talk about some positive things from them. But I think the fact that you were going against an opponent who was much lesser and you went in there and really had to just scrape a victory out, especially in front of the national kind of fan base, I think really kind of talks about where this Kansas City Chiefs team is at. Now, I am still optimistic. I'm not going to sound super negative because there was a lot of positive things to take away from this football game. And one of the things I really want to highlight immediately out the gate is the fact that this defense continues to improve and look phenomenal. Granted, again, they were holding a much lesser opponent down. That is what you're expected to do when you go into places like this against a lesser opponent. And our defense stepped up in a massive way, holding them to 9 points, a veteran quarterback in Russell Wilson, and really an offensive line that's been struggling. But Cam Skattebo, ladies and gentlemen, that dude is an absolute horse. He is a phenomenal football player coming out of Arizona State. He will be a good running back for the New York Giants here in the near future. Unfortunately, Tracy goes down with what I believe is probably a shoulder injury. He immediately hit the ground and started pointing at his shoulder as if it was dislocated or impinged or whatever it may be. I'm sure more information will come out on that, but I feel for that guy for sure because he had kind of risen to the top of that running back room and really was kind of splitting carries with Cam. It'll be interesting to see how they move forward. I'm sure Cam will start taking a lot of that workload, but this is a Kansas City Chiefs video, so we're going to start diving in and really kind of talk about, the expectations and really what we witnessed last night on this football game. So, like I stated earlier, it was a defensive battle. I really think the Kansas City Chiefs stepped up in a massive way. So, Patrick Mahomes really kind of sparked a lot of the offense. And was he completely accurate in this entire thing? No. Was he the Mahomes magic? There were times, there were glimpses, but there were a lot of times where he seemed off too. And so I don't want to let him kind of go unscathed. Now, the offensive line, in my opinion, played a lot better. Mahomes did take 2 sacks, but, for him to take 2 sacks, especially the way this offense played, I think, that still speaks to kind of the offensive line taking strides in a more positive way. That really kind of goes into, Mahomes, how he played. We're really looking at Mahomes went 22 of 37 for 224 yards. He did have one passing touchdown on one of an absolute incredible ball to Tyquan Thornton. And so it was really, really cool to see. So, like I said, Patrick Mahomes went 22 of 37 for 224 yards with that passing touchdown. I really think, again, he had to show his improv and how his ability to kind of make things happen came about. There were a lot of times where it just seems like plays break down. Wide receivers, they run their routes, and it's almost like they're not open, so they have to improv and kind of start to run around. Juju's kind of getting better at that, and obviously Kelsey and Mahomes are kind of always relying on that improv, but that kind of backfired a little bit, I feel like, last night. Kelsey, obviously, one of the highlights was, Kelsey runs what seems like a quick curl route or just a quick turnaround, and Mahomes and him are just off right now. They're off sync. And obviously he kind of, Mahomes throws a little bit to the right of him, and it's just off. Kelsey just seems to be like kind of in his emotions, kind of in his feelings right now. He made a mistake. He's expected to be that leader. And one of the things that I really kind of talked about last night was, we have guys that are holding others accountable. And that's because they've been through this process. They've won Super Bowls. They've been through the grind for year after year after year. We know Travis Kelce is one of the greatest tight ends to ever play this game. But how can you hold someone accountable when you're making mistakes? How can you hold someone accountable when you're making mental mistakes? And I don't want to degrade or bash Travis Kelce, because I believe he truly has played such a massive role in the success of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's not really what this is about. But again, when you're having issues, when you have off the field things going on, and then you come in and you're expected to hold people accountable, yet you're making mental mistakes, it's hard to do that. And that's where I think we're lacking a little bit right now. We know Patrick Mahomes is not that guy. Patrick Mahomes is not going to be a rah-rah, get in your face, kind of chew you out type of guy. He's always taking responsibility for mistakes. That's what a true leader does. But at times you need someone to kind of use their vocal voice to be able to step up and be that leader. And I think at times you're missing that. Chris Jones, a similar situation. Now, Chris kind of really stepped up in a big way last night. He did get his first sack, and I think Chris is starting to kind of click a little bit. The guys around him are starting to get after the quarterback. Karlaftis, kind of finally gets after him after Russell Wilson. But I think the fact that you're starting to get some of these defensive leaders to step up. Nick Bolton, I think, led the team in tackles with 14, which was absolutely impressive, although he did kind of get thumped a couple times from Scattaboo. But Nick Bolton really stepped in a big way. So you're getting some defensive leaders, but really that's truly what I feel you're lacking on the offensive side of the football. Now, I think when it comes to that offensive line, it's hard for guys like Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and some of those other guys to really kind of be that person, because that's just not their role. And that's really what they rely heavily on with Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and those types of guys, is just to be the example. Now, it's going to be interesting, and obviously this is a recap, but I think once Travis Kelce decides to hang up the cleats and move on, you're going to be really missing a significant piece of that. And, I didn't anticipate that our season would start off the way it has this year, just because of the fact that we still have those leaders. We have that experience. You still have Andy Reid. But the fact that that is still kind of coming back in my mind to the fact that Kelce's going to eventually hang these cleats up. And that's a significant leader. That's a vocal leader. That's someone who leads by example when it comes to the very start of the season. When training camp is starting, even before that, when OTAs and the simple things of just getting into the room and working, that's what Kelce is. And so the fact that he's going to move on at some point, you're really going to have to fill that gap. And I don't know who's going to be able to do that. Now, Kareem Hunt, the running game in a whole, I think I was really highly disappointed. This is a defense in the New York Giants that really struggled to stop the run. I believe they were they were dead last in running defense. And the fact that we were only able to really manage, what we were able to on the ground, we shied away from the run. We started throwing the football more. There were times where it felt like we probably should have run the football, but we decided to throw the football. Kareem Hunt did score a rushing touchdown, but I really think that, this is going to continue to be something that, not only me, but I think when it comes across to Kansas City people who cover the Chiefs, national media, it doesn't matter when you listen to people talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to continue to hit on the fact that they have absolutely no running game whatsoever. And even though we were able to get 45 yards on 10 carries from Isaiah Pacheco, and you were able to get relatively the exact same from Kareem Hunt, just kind of speaks to where this running game is at. I mean, the fact that we were only get 10 carries to your top back for 45 yards against the worst run defense in the NFL, that's just not good. And so I think that obviously there's going to have to be improvement in some facet of that part of the game. And, whether it comes down to adding someone to this running back room, or it comes down to, making some changes in your scheme, you're going to have to figure out how to run the football, because what that is doing, and we saw it again firsthand last night, you take away the run, you become a one-dimensional game. You're forcing Patrick Mahomes to have Mahomes magic every time he goes out there, and he's having to do certain things. Now, he didn't really run the football last night, but he's having to create things that he shouldn't have to create each week. It's nice to know that Mahomes can peel off and make these crazy plays. I mean, he threw a no-look pass to Juju Smith-Schuster. He is able to start throwing the deep ball again, although there has been some accuracy issues. He's starting to throw the deep ball again, but the fact that you can't run the ball, you know more than likely they're going to throw it. So when you know that they're going to throw it, how is your defense going to be designed? I think, one thing I was talking to Josh Fan about from, Show Me Football, is the fact that a lot of these defenses are starting to show light boxes, specifically last night. They are absolutely enticing you to run the football. They're wanting you to run the football, but we keep, straying away from the run, and we keep going to the pass. And I think that that's very unfortunate. And I think that that's going to hurt when you play teams like who we play next week in the Baltimore Ravens. They are going to scheme around passing. They're going to force you to try to run the football. And if you can't run the football, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to lose the football game. And so that's really where we're at. So we're going to continue kind of talking about this Chiefs-Giants game. Russell Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, again, I just don't feel, he felt almost very robotic. He was 18 of 32 for 160 yards, but he threw 2 interceptions that really they were errors. I mean, they were just errors. We know Russell Wilson likes to throw the ball deep. He likes to launch the football, but the 2 that he threw were just underthrown and really just right to the defender. And really, it almost seemed like he potentially almost threw two more. Russell Wilson definitely was not there. That last drive, he threw 4 footballs, and he threw them a row deeper each time. I mean, he was throwing absolute missiles into the first row. Fans were having to take cover, ladies and gentlemen. I saw popcorn fly, beer fly, because there was, people were freaking out. Footballs were coming at them. But all joking aside, there were a lot of Jackson Dart chants. I do believe that Jackson Dart will be coming into the really the starting role at some point for this New York Giants team, especially with them starting 0-3. Really nobody vibing around Russell Wilson. Tyrone Trace goes out again with that shoulder injury. You got Cam Scatterboo, Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson. You got some young talented guys. And I think it's time to really see what Jackson Dart can provide. Kind of almost that injection of energy for this team, especially starting 0-3. You really don't have anything to lose. Give him an opportunity to go out there and just see what he has. They do take on the Los Angeles Chargers next week, which is not going to be an easier opponent. So I would anticipate that this Giants football team will be 0-4, and they are on pace to really be at the top of the draft when that time comes. Now, again, I really want to highlight the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs defense, although Cam Scatterboo exploded for 121 yards from the line of scrimmage, they did allow a touchdown to him. I mean, he really was the offense. Was he catching the football, but he was able to run the football? He really was the offense. And Cam is just a thundering running back. That's just who he is. But what I really want to highlight is the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs found a way to limit Malik Neighbors, an absolute stud wide receiver, to only 2 catches for 13 yards on 7 targets. This secondary absolutely bottled him up. And I think that that's important. Now, was Russell Wilson off on a few? For sure. For sure. You could account probably 2 of those, so we'll say 2 of 5. But the fact that Malik Neighbors did not go off on this defense really speaks to the game plan, the coaching, the fact that this defense continues to improve. They're taking their job seriously. They're starting to really focus on that. I mean, I really believe that this defense is going to be something that carries us until this offense not only gets its weapons back, but they start to click, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there were some notable injuries. We did talk about a few. We talked about, obviously, Tyrone Tracy going out for the Giants. One of the big ones for the Chiefs was safety Brian Cook, but he did return back into the football game, which was kind of important to see. But the fact that he went down on what seemed to be like a neck injury or a head injury on a deep ball, it was nice to kind of see him return, but I'm sure we'll see him on the injury report. Obviously, we did not get to see Xavier Worthy. He sat out again. I don't even think he traveled to New York. And then another one, obviously, one of the guys that I was really anticipating seeing, we were kind of, throughout the week, we were kind of given that almost like tantalizing. How do I want to say it? They were kind of tricking us. They're like, oh, Xavier Worthy's kind of working his way back, ladies and gentlemen. He looks to be like he's going to be on the, and then it's like down he went. Jalen Royals, same way. It's like Jalen Royals is working back, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to be a full participant. Things are looking great. I don't even think we saw Jalen Royals out there. So the fact that we still have yet to see those guys play, and then obviously the suspension, there's a lot of things that are still going on with this offense. And I don't want to kind of go negative on that because that really is a significant thing. When you take out major pieces of your offense and you're having to put guys into positions that you just were not anticipating, and yes, granted, they're all NFL players, but there's different skill sets, ladies and gentlemen. There's definitely different skill sets. Like if you take a Jamar Chase and you take him and compare him to Nico Remigio, that's a big difference, ladies and gentlemen. That's kind of what you're talking about. When you have a guy who is very, very good at what he does in Rashee Rice, and then you compare him to a Nico Remigio or some of these other guys that were running out there, that's a big difference. Xavier Worthy, the speed, the ability to do certain things. Now we saw Nico Remigio run a similar route or it was a kind of like a handoff, that Xavier Worthy would run. Those are the types of things that you're missing with Xavier Worthy. So there's some things that you're missing. To be able to stretch the field, there's a lot of things. Now, Tyquan Thornton did a phenomenal job. I don't want that to go unnoticed. Tyquan Thornton is stepping up in an absolute massive way for this team. Massive way. And so I really think that that's important. Now, the final injury was Graham Gano. The kicker for the Giants was dealing with a groin injury. He definitely attempted to go out there and do what he could. He did kick, I believe, 1 or 2 field goals, but the fact that he was really kind of hurting, they really kind of talked about it on the broadcast, the fact that he was really wincing in pain when he tried to come out after halftime and try to kick some field goals, just wasn't going to work. So I would anticipate that he might probably go on the IR, injured reserve, and they will be getting a new kicker for that football team. Man, ladies and gentlemen, there was a lot. And obviously we're going to be breaking this thing down through the week. There's going to be a lot more that's going to come out. I really want to stay optimistic. I do. I believe in this Kansas City Chiefs football team. I believe in the leadership that they have, the coaching, the guys like Mahomes and Kelsey. Like, take this one as a victory. Really focus on the things that you need to work on and move forward, because you have an absolute gauntlet of a schedule and you have some beasts that are going to be coming to Arrowhead in the next few games. I mean, Baltimore's next, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you checking out this video. Let me know down in the comment section what you all are thinking. Man, there really was a lot. There's a lot to analyze. There's a lot to focus on. So let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. Make sure you guys smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, and as always, have a good day.